organization. Therefore, take advantage of NTA TV College Short Proficiency courses to sharpen your professional skills. Basic Broadcast Accounting and Auditing. Date 4th April to 15th April 2022. 2 weeks. Audio Engineering Operations and Maintenance. Date 18th April to 29th April 2022. 2 weeks. The course fee for the 2-week course is 150,000 naira only. Accommodation inclusive. The venue for all courses is the serene and secure environment of NTA TV College near Old Government House, Rayfield, Jos. For more enquiries, please call 0803-314-4383 or 0806-980-9807. NTA TV College, Jos. Training you to be the best you want to be.
We are all Nigerians. Against all odds, we shall and must remain united. We may have our challenges, our problems, and setbacks. However, together we shall overcome them all. What doesn't break us shall make us stronger. This is the mindset that shall bring peace, progress, and prosperity to our beloved country. Do not let tribal and religious sentiments govern how you think, act, or feel. Don't be influenced by those who want to destroy our precious national unity. Everybody who is a Nigerian is your brother and your sister. This is the mindset of the new Nigeria. It is also the mindset that we must all adopt. Let us support each other in creating the Nigeria of our dreams. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as the elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within, and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
Well, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria. This morning, we're talking about politics of zoning in Nigeria. And as 2023 elections draw near, handling the politics of zoning for the presidential race is as dicey as it is contentious. And here is Kenan Dilue with the background as a prompt for our discussion.
2023 is another year for general elections in Nigeria's political calendar. As expected, few months to the scheduled date, the political landscape has started witnessing the intrigues, horse tradings, and banters that characterize politicking in the country. In the midst of all these, one issue that has kept resonating among political actors is zoning of the presidency. This has indeed become one of the most contentious issues at the moment, especially within the circle of the two largest political parties in the country, the People's Democratic Party and the All Progressives Congress. Although not stated in the Constitution or the Electoral Act, zoning was adopted to aid rotation of key political positions across the country for the purpose of fairness, peace, and equitable distribution of resources. Zoning arrangement in the Fourth Republic can be traced to the annulment of the June 12, 1993 presidential elections. To assuage the sense of grievance of the Southwest geopolitical zone, where the winner of that election came from, the two main political parties that emerged to lead the transition from the military to civilian rule in 1999 reached a consensus that allowed the presidential candidates from the two major parties to emerge from the southwest part of the country. Since then, Nigeria has seen the presidency rotate between the northern and southern parts of the country. Going by this arrangement, Nigeria's next president come 2023 arguably should be of Southern origin. Recent events have however revealed that some political players are opposing this arrangement on the basis that it undercuts the freedom to choose, fosters mediocrity on the nation, depriving the people of effective leadership. Proponents of zoning have also insisted that there is no geopolitical zone that cannot boast of qualified and competent presidential candidates. Is zoning healthy for Nigeria's political development? What are the merits and demerits of zoning? Why are some political actors opposing the zoning arrangements at this point in Nigeria's political history? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria shall be speaking to these issues in a moment.
Oh, well, this morning, as we say, we should be talking to, politics of zoning. And let's welcome our guests to this program. We have first in the studio here, Dr. George Mogalu, Managing Director of the, NIWA, that's Nigerian Inland Waterways Authority. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Good
much.
morning, viewers.
Now, also, we have Alhaji Ahmed Sajo, former Commissioner for Information and Strategy at Adamawa State, and now a board member of the NBC. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay, we have another guest who is joining us via Zoom, and from Abeokuta is Olushoga Owoye, a political analyst. Olushoga Owoye, a pleasure to have you with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, gentlemen, we expect another guest to join us for today's conversation from our Benin Network Studios, so that it is not just a matter of the tripod. You have the tripod, and then you also have the minority that comes in there for part of the conversation. Let's just begin by taking a look at the whole concept of zoning. Is it a matter of law, or is it a matter of political expediency, or a matter of inclusiveness? Why zoning? Sajo.
Thank you very much. I let me first and foremost correct you. I'm also a minority, so it's not.
No. Anyway, Sajo, as Nigerians will say.
Well, but I think if you strip zoning of the emotive issues of geography and probably faith, if you look at it very critically, zoning is expedient and zoning is imperative. You have three strands to the zoning for the political setup. You have zoning by merit, you have zoning by electability, and you have zoning by elimination. There is no way you could avoid one or two of those. But when we turn it to an emotive discussion, and we be zoning, and I give you my explanations. The first thing you do is to select a candidate. You can throw it open to all the zones, but then you have two considerations. It's either you are deciding on an individual within the entire zones based on electability or based on merit. These are issues we are not discussing, but truly they are the center of it. And as soon as you pick your presidential candidate, then you now, in taking the next office, you go for zoning by elimination. You eliminate the zone that had produced the president for the next available office. So whichever way you look at it, there is going to be zoning. And why do you need the zoning? The zoning is for inclusion, and then the zoning is also for an understanding of our peculiarities, the different tendencies that are within our polity that has to be captured so that it can be carried alone. But where we are now, is that we have a precedent. We have a precedent since 1999 where the presidency had somehow fluctuated or rotated from the northern part of the country to the southern part of the country, and from the southern part of the country to the northern part of the country. It could be by direct political arrangement. It could also be, like in the case of Yaradua to Goodluck, by divine intervention. But it is still a kind of rotation of the presidency from one part of the country to the other. So this is why a lot of people think that we need to consider this fact of our recent history in determining the next leadership of this country. So it's more a matter of inclusion, making everybody have a sense of belonging, making everybody believe that the nation belongs to all of us, than actually for any legal, consideration. It's just a matter of political expediency.
Thank you so much, Ahmed Sajo. Dr. George Mogale, you heard what Ahmed said. Is happen on inclusivity, and of course for national cohesion, and then for all to participate in the governance of the country. That makes more or less learning more expedient. But he also talked about merit and electability. Do you see that really working? And if so, had it really worked so much that we should continue with it along this line as we move on to strengthen our democracy?
Well, I'd like to take it from the perspective raised by Kingsley, in the sense that he asked by asking, is it law, is it constitutional? And then if you align it with what my brother Sergio said, it is conventional. Yes, the issue of zoning more or less is conventional to guarantee inclusiveness. It provides opportunity to achieve balance. It kind of provides a reassuring guarantee to a people that, however you look at it, one day, one way or the other, will be at the center of the stage. In looking at that, we must understand that it is a phenomenon, it's a process. Because I have always said, in course of my various interviews, that every street in Nigeria has the capacity to generate a complete cabinet. Yes, because the issue of merit, issue of qualification, issue of having the right persons to do the job. No zone, no area will you say lacks in having the possibility or the ability to generate qualified candidates who can meet whatever criteria you may have set out in achieving such. So that is why zoning now becomes imperative, because people are looking at it as one, that's the only way to guarantee total inclusiveness, way to guarantee everybody's involvement. It's just taken, for example, my political party, APC, that I belong to, quite recently. You saw all the positions in the north. The previous leadership where I served moved now to the south, and the positions in the south moved to the north. So, and if you notice, of all these positions that were moved north-south and south-north, there were more than one person wanting to occupy those positions. Okay, that goes to show that it's not about the persons, it's not about the qualifications, it's not about the kind of persons you need, but it's everybody, every zone has enough persons to be able to occupy such positions. But in doing that, you can't throw merit overboard, because in a political contest, you must look at the possibility of acceptability. You cannot say, because, okay, I have to zone it, I'll zone it to somebody who I know will not win the election. Okay, so these are all considerations that you put into place in achieving zoning, with a view to actualizing the ultimate ambition for a political party, which is to win power. All right, thank you, Dr. Mogalu. I will come back to you in the course of the conversation. Now let's return to our Zoom connection to Abeokuta with Olushoga Owoye. Mr. Owoye, why zoning?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. At the risk of repeating what other speakers have said, I will also want to align myself to the position of the two speakers there in the studio. Now, every nation, not only nation, every living being, whether you are human, whether a company, whether a corporate body, whether you learn from your experience. And the experience of June 12 has shown us that, look, for this nation to maintain a balance, we must reach a common understanding of moving the leadership of the country from the component parts, from each component part to another, one component part to another component part. And it has worked in the last 15 to 20 years. We have been able to experiment. Is it constitutional? No. Is it conventional? Yes. Each component parts of the country has come together and reach an understanding that, look, for this country to be stable, for this country to be, to continue to make progress, every section of the country must be given a sense of belonging. Is it going to be a permanent thing? We do not know. But through this this phase where Nigerians seek a lot of stability, there must be a mechanism. Like you have in the United States, the Electoral College was, crafted to balance the population in each state against state that has a smaller population. So every country, every nation crafts methods, styles that could guarantee the stability of that country. Now, are we going to do this for a long time? We may agree that this could be a phase, like for 25 years, for 50 years. After we have achieved a lot of stability, a new generation can come together and say, look, let us abandon this process. We must go out and say, if you are, for example, you have in 1983, when Abiola contested with a Muslim on a Muslim ticket. If that had succeeded, probably we would have moved faster than where we are now. Probably Nigerians will not be talking about president from the north, vice president from the south. The president is a Christian. The vice president must be a Muslim. Probably that would have brought a big leap in our historical trajectory. But unfortunately, it was truncated, and that brought about the issue of alienation from power. A section of the country believe that, look, because you have this power, you are not going to allow us. So it is in the wisdom of our leaders and political leaders to come together and say, how do we guarantee stability? And this is what brought us to the issue of zoning. It has brought a little bit of stability within the country. And you still have what you call micro-zoning even within the zones to say, okay, you take this, we take this, you take that, we take. Each component, each members of that zone have a lot of competent people to fill those positions. It's not because you are zoning to your zone, like Mr. George Mohalu has said now that, look, it's not because we have zoned this into your community, you go and bring somebody that is not acceptable. So the entire zone will still look at it and say, no, bring the best from your community, bring the best from your state or your local government. And I think it's working well for Nigeria. We should maintain it for now. In the future, when the next generation are more matured, are more experienced, are more developed in mind, then probably they can shift to another method. That is just my own position this morning.
Okay, thank you, Olusoga Oye. Ahmed Saju, hearing Oye talking, we can take maybe 2 or 3 points from that. That's talking about the need for stability, which is the reason he said for zoning, and most importantly, he talked about the Abiola Kingibe ticket, which was Muslim, that had it succeeded, it would have at least taken us far further than where we are, democratically speaking. Do you see zoning as we still practice it, retarding democratic process in Nigeria?
I don't think it's retarding democratic practices. And I told you that no matter what you do, there has to be some kind of zoning. And if not zoning by a decision of the whole, at least zoning by elimination, no matter how democratic you think you want to be. You cannot have the president and vice president both coming from the north or both coming from the south. It's practically, impossible. And even the Abiola Babagana Kinkibe ticket he was talking about, it was one ticket from the north and the other, from the south, combined to give the ticket. Awo tried it. He took a southerner as his running mate, and you saw how it ended up. The north naturally just felt alienated completely and massively voted against the ticket. So it's somehow, we still need the balancing. The balancing is to create some level of inclusiveness in the political system and to ensure that every one of the ways you can give assurance to every zone that you identify with their capacity is to actually build your tickets around the two different zones, and so we think for quite some time now we would have to live by the zoning arrangement. But like I said, there are a lot of premises upon which we put some of these zoning discussions that are faulty. When we become too emotive about it, assigning tribal sentiments or ethnic sentiments to zoning, assigning, religious sentiments around zoning, assigning even regional sentiment to a large extent around zoning, we tend to eliminate, merit, and we tend to also premise our discussion on wrong assumptions. I take it, I come from Adamawa State. We have 87 ethnic groups on record. If you want to do zoning by ethnic affiliations, I wonder when it will come to our turn. It's going to be very tough. So we're looking at it. We have regional blocks, we have geopolitical zones. Those regional blocks and geopolitical zones must be captured in the manner we build a superstructure for the leadership of our country. And like my brother said from the Southwest, even when you talk about zoning within the big regional blocks, there are also micro-zoning considerations at the lower level and even down to the lowest level. But I think what zoning is doing to us that is negative is that, zoning is not allowing us to discuss capacity exhaustively. That we know every zone has people who are capable. But when we are talking about zoning, we're just talking of zoning within the regional context. Nobody is putting forward strong arguments as to capacity, ability to provide the kind of leadership that we need. We have people who can do that all over. But sometimes the very good people are not electable. And when the consideration is electability, sometimes you end up zoning a position to a zone and picking somebody who is electable but incapable. And I think we should start talking about capacity much more than we're talking about it presently.
When you talk about electability here, why don't you shed more light on that?
Electability. You see, the thing is that a person can be very popular. He can be a populist. He could be very good. Or, as we have today with our transactional politics, politics of how much do you have, how deep is your pocket. Somebody could just have more money, that qualifies that person to be taken as a candidate because he had used his resources to develop a level of visibility and a level of, he created so much optics that in the field you just see his face only and you assume he is electable without considering the fact that he may be electable but he's not capable. And we've thrown away very capable persons, in favor of simply electable people with deep pockets who may not deliver. And that's why we don't have a model in the country. You cannot point at this is a model of leadership, this is the kind of model we want for our country. Because every time we go this emotive, we just look for people who are electable, regardless of whether they are capable, and then we force them on the people, and they become leaders without substance.
Okay.
And that is the key.
All right, Amasajo, thank you very much. Dr. Mogalu, against the background of the benefits of zoning, which you all have identified and discussed briefly in the course of this conversation, why is there so much talk, I don't want to say heat, about zoning, particularly of the presidency? We'll come to the issues of micro-zoning. If these benefits are identifiable, why are members of the political class unwilling to come to grips with these benefits and then just move on with the process that will actualize zoning?
You see, the truth be told, we are in a political environment that, like Sergio rightly said, which you cannot exclude emotions, sentiments. These are practical considerations. These are things that happen on daily basis. And then you cannot, no matter how you look at it, separate achieving inclusiveness and guaranteeing stability in the political process. And the only way you can do that is, like our friend Owoye rightly observed, is by getting everybody feel that he has a stake in the project Nigeria, using our country now as an example, the project Nigeria. You must look at the situation. How do we now get everybody see it as our project? And the only way everybody can see it as our project is that there must be this assurance of inclusiveness. And that is the key thing about zoning, which zoning has been able to achieve. Like Sergio also rightly observed, he gave a good example with the experiment Awo tried when he now, from Southwest, chose a Southeasterner as running mate. There was a what I call a political revolt against that ticket, irrespective of the quality they are bringing to the table. Nobody.
That was Philip Umadi.
Philip Umadi, yes. Nobody was ready to consider who the candidates were. Their capacity, their capability became irrelevant. The point here is that a section felt excluded. And the only way for us to prove to you that you excluded us was to use our votes to prove to you that you failed in your decision. So when you look at zoning from that perspective, you find out that you need to look at the political culture. You need to look at the people, look at where we are coming from. Like what you also rightly observed, when you look at the American system, they had to bring in these super delegates and their own electoral college system. Because if you had allowed it as a matter of one vote, one person per one vote, some states will completely be excluded in the process. They may not even be required. But they had to introduce that because that was the only way they can guarantee involvement of those smaller states in the electoral process of choosing who the president of their country will be. So that is one thing about zoning. Now, like I also said earlier, there is no street in this country that cannot generate a full cabinet. There is no state that cannot generate a full cabinet. And there is no state that does not have enough persons, no zone that does not have enough persons that can be thrown up. It's unfortunate that we have a mercantile process, like he also observed, that deep pocket has a role to play. I agree that money has a role to play in politics because you have to look at the logistics implication. But at the same time also, we've taken it to a level that now it is affecting merit. It's affecting the process of choosing the right persons. But as to whether these right persons are there, they're all there. It's a matter of identifying them. So what this zoning does is that it tells a group, okay, no matter, for example, we have we have been moving our zoning process. The campaign now is north, south, north, south. And when you now achieve that, you now go down to micro zoning. Like the national convention we just had of my party. when the geopolitical zones were given positions due for those zones, people went back to their zones to now do microzoning so that every component will be accommodated. If you take the elections in Anambra State, the governorship that took place in Anambra State not too long ago, what happened? Every political party was moving towards the south because everybody felt, okay, it is the turn of Anambra South now to produce the governor of the state. And every attention, every political party, consciously or unconsciously, moved there. Even the traditional rulers came out and issued a communique and said, this is the turn of Anambra South. The government said, we support that position. The Labour said, we support that position. At the end of the day, every political party moved towards the south to choose their candidates. At the end of the day, it was all southern candidates that won. Those who now came from other zones knew they were going against the tide from day one, even before the election. So it became a...
As in, what? Did you give them boats, life boats?
If they did it, I would have. In fact, we supported INEC by way of providing vessels for them to move their stuff. So in doing that, you see now, at the end of the day, the governorship, the candidate that emerged after the election came from South. That agitation has now been resolved. The state now is, everybody feels, okay, it's now the south of the town, the south, turn of the south. I can even tell you that some people have started talking now that after South is Central. And the man is not 1 month in office. And the agitation now have started. So people are now drawing their schemes.
So those in the center are now planning to who's going.
But the point, but I mean, let's clarify this, because I think Dr. Mwagalu is making a very valid and important point, because these are the kind of things you hear at the subnational level. Yes. To say, look, there was tension, there was anxiety, and not even just by saying that, look, this is where we want this thing to go, or it is the turn of this particular place, then let everybody then seek. When that was achieved, there has been, general relative peace and agreement that that's where it went to.
Yes. And it now reduces tension. It now reduces tension because anybody going against that knows from point one that he's going against the tide, and they are going to use it against him, no matter how popular he is, when the chips are down. So in doing that's why when you talk about inclusiveness, I'm guaranteeing political stability. Because if we know that this is what is going to happen, everybody now walks towards it. But when you keep it lucid, when it is floating, you create a lot of anxiety. And people start working out calculations on how to disrupt the entire process. Because certainly a section or sections will be excluded. And then you will now play up those negative sentiments of tribe, of religion, those negative sentiments that the elite, including me, cash on to achieve political advantage. So those negative sentiments will now be played out again, and that is not good for us. That is where it now affects our stability as a political process.
Yeah. I mean, it's so simple, like ABC, but the question is, why is it that the number of actors on the political scene do not appear to apprehend the logic and value in what you are saying?
No, it's simple. It's very, very simple. It's a matter of personal interest now.
Exactly.
It's a matter of selfishness. If I am going to be affected by the final decision when the zone is going to be implemented, why can't I start working against it ab initio? It is simple. It is personal. It's about selfish interest. It's about what is my personal gain in the process. Because if we entrench zoning now, certainly a group will be affected. A section will be affected. Some people,
but it will create inclusiveness.
Good.
And it will guarantee stability.
Good. But the people now, the operators themselves, have now reduced it to a thing of person.
And transaction.
What is my stake in it? It becomes transactional. Mm-hmm. It becomes a policy of transaction that we're talking about, which is not a case of what is my personal stake. Where do I benefit? Now that I'm planning to be governor, I'm planning to be president, I'm planning to be local government chairman. You are now saying that it's going to be zoned out of my zone, and it's going to go to the other zone. Then you start fighting. I have seen a case of quite recently where somebody who wants to be governor, and the serving governor is from his constituency, and he has started already fighting zoning. He has started already. They have not even declared the battle open, but he has started fighting. And the reason is very simple. If he's able to shoot down zoning,
then he has a
he
chance.
has a chance.
Yeah.
But if he does not shoot down zoning, he's already excluded. So it's not a matter of the reality on the ground, but it's a matter of where am I accommodated in the process.
And
Sergeant.
beyond that, there are people who also believe that time is not on their side. There are people who believe, look, this is the only chance I have. After this, no more. And so if the zoning can deprive them of this situation that may not present itself again after this a particular period, they oppose it. But I think that as much as a lot of people feel that zoning negates merit and negates a lot of other political considerations, even negates democratic choice of openness and things like that. I think for the sake of inclusiveness, for the sake of stability of the system, for the sake of creating a sense of belonging and understanding by everybody, I think we need to start considering, issues of zoning in determining the leadership until such a time that we stabilize properly. And like my brother said, a time will come when a generation of Nigerians will say, look, to hell with this zoning, I do not care. But again, to get to that point, the leadership, the elite must do two things. First and foremost, we must avoid, cashing in on base sentiment in attracting attention to ourselves and leadership. Manipulating our fault lines is actually one of the cardinal sins committed by those of us in the elite class. We manipulate our natural fault lines of region, religion, and ethnicity. And then secondly, our institutions must be made to function. If I am sure that I will be served by an institution without knowing who is in that institution, I would not mind who is heading or who is even working in an institution. But here we are. We have reduced our institutions to fiefdoms for the people who are sitting on that institution. So all the calculations, of I want to become president and I support you to become president, all ends up to what do I get out of the entire process. If Moalu becomes president tomorrow, I am sure I'm going to be in the cabinet. So if he says he doesn't like zoning...
But you don't live on the same street. Because he said that from the street you can have a cabinet.
No, but I am telling you, if my brother George Moalu becomes president today, I can assure you that I'll be on that cabinet. And so because of that, if George Moalu is going for presidency and says he doesn't like zoning, I will naturally say I don't like zoning because it's in his likeness that my benefits will come. So a lot of people are just looking at self. What is in it for me as the motivating factor, not the nation, not the stability of the nation.
All right, thank you. I want us to return to Olusoga Owoye. Olusoga Owoye via Zoom, if you're still there with us, right, we can see you on the right side of the screen. The zoning issue, particularly for the presidency, has been an interesting one because of the various reasons that have been adduced. And as the saying goes, there's virtually nothing new under the sun. Earlier, my colleague and I, when we were kicking off this program, I did remark that K.O. Mbadewe, the Second Republic, he was a member of the NPN, said at the time that the NPN was zoning in order to unzone. That's one of the famous quotes that he gave. We saw what happened in 1999. We saw what happened in 2007, and unfortunately, Yar'Adua could not complete his tenure. And then we also saw what happened in 2011 when Goodluck Jonathan, as incumbent, decided to contest the election. And then again in 2015, what eventually occurred. If we factor in the dynamics of our country, what, in your opinion, would satisfy the yearnings of inclusiveness and therefore guarantee of stability? Because if a part feels apart from the rest, are we likely to, have some measure of stability, or will continue with the same tension that we're having all over the place?
Yeah, I did not. Sorry, I didn't pick your last, the main question. Can you repeat it?
Okay, but you heard the preface to my question. Did you hear the preface to my question?
Yes, I heard that, the preface.
All right, thanks. So what I'm saying is, considering the current political dynamics in the country, what could be the best options to achieving inclusiveness and therefore, as we have identified in the course of this conversation, guaranteeing stability and for a people to feel a part of rather than apart from the federation of our country?
Yeah, thank you. Like I said earlier, that look, it is not, zoning is not in the constitution, but it's a convention that everybody has, majority have accepted. And like Dr. Mahalu was saying, the moment the zoning is going to zone you out, you begin to oppose zoning. The moment zoning favors you, you join zoning. That is politics. That is because it's a game of interest. All of us you cannot have an 100% consensus around a particular issue. So it will keep on your calling. There will be people that will be opposing zoning for their own interest. That is not, it's not a bad thing to have an interest and to protect that interest. As long as the mainstream opinion favors a particular idea, that will take over the discussion. The debate now is zoning. And if you want to jettison zoning now, a lot of people who have been expecting, who have waited, who have been patient for 8 years, thinking that, okay, after 8 years, the tradition is that it will come to our zone, become agitated. That will bring instability. Now, like I also said that, look, it's not going to be a permanent feature. We hope it's not going to be a permanent feature. And that a time will come when the new generation of Nigeria will come together and say, no, we are okay. And when you get to that stage, nobody is going to remind us to stop zoning. It will come naturally. The people will not bother again because the economic stability is there, the political stability is there. Only a few conscientious people will now be involved in politics. So that will end. But for now, for the stability that we have been having the last 20 years to continue, we need to insist. We need to keep this idea of zoning and allow it to prosper for now. Now, I want to address the issue of capacity and capability that the other speaker in the studio has been saying. Now, a new generation of Nigeria is around now. If you look at the contest of the APC youth leadership, you see that one of the contestants actually raised 4 million online to purchase his own form. So in those countries where you are thinking about money bags who are coming to contest, and you are comparing to Nigeria where people have money, are the one in some locality, in some area that has access to political power. Yes, it is a phase. But take the United States, for example. You begin to raise money from day one. You begin to raise money. And the more popular and acceptable the candidate becomes, the more money he's able to raise. And that's why I gave that example of a particular youth leader who raised, within 3 days, raised money for his form. He raised the money for his forms and bought the form with public money. Now, this generation of Nigeria will be able, in the future, I pray they will be able to enter political race without a dime, just their capacity and capability. And people will be able to raise money for them to contest the election. So we just need to keep going. Like what happened in Anambra, where majority believe that the power must move down to the southern senatorial zone. And it's, if you go against that political culture, you are going to be punished. The people will punish you for it because it has become a major consensus. And that's why every country, every nation develop along the line of elite consensus. Once the elite agree on something, the people move into that direction. And the major challenge in Nigeria now is for recruitment into that early stature. Leadership recruitment must be deliberate. It must be deliberate. It must follow a style. People must be deliberately brought into politics. Once your capacity is identified, our leaders must continue to go out to recruit and invite people who have the capacity to go into politics. That will help us as we move ahead. But for mutual agreements among the component parts where our leaders have agreed that, look, once it goes to the north, the next one will come from the south. That guarantees stability now, it guarantees sense of belonging, which is needed, badly needed now, between various ethnic groups and between various religious groups. We cannot abandon that now midway. Thank you.
Okay, many thanks, Olusoga Owoye. I am particularly interested about your insistence on the fact that the zoning system and the zoning formula we have now is temporary. And then, of course, with time, as you say, a generation of Nigerians will come to do away with that and have something moving, something better for them. Thank you once again. We've been told that Dr. Isaiah Osifo, a two-time chairman of the Wadi local government area in Edo State. Did I say it right? You're laughing, Kingsley.
No. You murdered me.
How is it?
Isaiah Osifo himself is probably who may. But give me the opportunity of.
But nonetheless, I will get that right later on.
Absolutely.
He's now on us. We'll try to, get to him right, and then let's have his own contribution. But in the moment, we shall take a break, and when we come back, we get started and move on with Dr. Isaiah Osifo. Please stay with us. It's Good Morning, Nigeria.
Thank you for the rejections that taught me to keep striving. Thank you for the long hours that taught me discipline. Thank you for the knockdowns that taught me to bounce back. And for the unexpected victories that taught me to never give up. Thank you for making me who I am.
Every harmattan, he falls sick so frequently and misses school often. I keep him away from junk food.
She also feeds me apple. She said an apple a day keeps
If you want to keep germs away, then use Dettol soap regularly. Germs and disease spread easily during harmattan. For this, use Dettol soap. Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Dettol soap is endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association. Be Dettol sure.
The 157-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan Railway is the first double-track standard gauge railway to be built in West Africa. The Mobolaji Johnson train station is a masterpiece, an infrastructure that is gradually becoming an iconic building in Lagos State. The modern facilities put the station on a world map of train stations. Likewise, other new train stations across the country built to world-class standards. The train and its convenience is indeed an admirable effort, with commendations from Nigerians.
This is a station that we have to commend the federal government for putting a beautiful face, empowering us in Lagos State, not only in economic and political arena.
I can say that I'm really impressed with the infrastructures in place. Kudos to the Minister of Transportations. Kudos to the federal government.
Truly, good things are coming out of Nigeria, and the federal government is deserving of all the applause.
Finally, the hero of Nigeria's democracy has arrived. He shall usher us into a new phase of development, peace, and prosperity. He is the father of the new Nigeria, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Welcome to another season of giving Nigerians hope yet again. We are sure of a great future for both ourselves and generations yet unborn. We look forward to your leading us as a nation into our manifest destiny. Though the challenges against us as a people are many, we know that your leadership shall set us on the right path to our greatness. A new dawn beckons on us all, and having you as our president is a precursor to this. Thank you for believing in Nigeria. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Dialogue, empathy, love, and unity. These are vital components of nation building.
For all to be well, we appeal that we should refrain from volatile, provocative, inciting messages and language.
Let's build and not destroy.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria live on NTA's network service. We still have our two guests here with us in the Abuja studios, and just before we went on the break, my colleague Nadabo introduced Dr. Isaiah Osifo from our Benin studios. Isaiah Osifo is a two-time local government chairman of Umuode in Edo State. Dr. Isaiah Osifo, what are your views on the politics of zoning ahead of 2023?
For having me. Zoning has its own merits and demerits. The political situation or the exigency of time can emphasize the inevitability of zoning in order to attain a stable political system for the nation. Again, time too, and the situation that is prevalent in the political system can as well de-emphasize the principle of zoning. I listened to the last speaker. Actually, politicians are fond of, if they are supported by zoning, they will be behind zoning. If they are disadvantaged by zoning, they argue against zoning. But being that as it may, zoning has its own merits, it has its own demerits. The classification of whether it is necessary or it is unnecessary will depend upon the time in the history of any particular nation. When you require leadership to provide certain special services that could take a particular sovereign nation to a level, sometimes zoning can be set aside for peculiarity of the time or the period. So taking the Nigerian political system, what we have now, you see government, we see developing nation, developing democracy. And when you have a situation in a developing democracy such as Nigeria, and you have a multi-party political system, different political parties, basically, is that we're developing a democracy. If you have a personality that has special qualities that can bring improvement and development upon the economic system and the political system, I don't see there's anything wrong in sacrificing zoning for merit. Right now, what Nigerians desire most, yes, unity of the country, stability of the nation. An individual can trigger unity irrespective of the zone he comes from or she comes from. An individual can improve upon the present system in terms of economic prosperity, security, and well-being, irrespective of the zone he or she comes from. So zoning is good, yes. But on the other hand, in a developing democracy, capacity, quality, obvious antecedents of the ability to transform a nation that is developing may take precedence over the fidelity to zoning. My take summarily is that we should not be hooked to zoning if we have an individual, irrespective of the region, that will know if he's elected as a president or as a country or a governor in a state, can improve rapidly upon the present political system or level of development. So, again, we anticipate to get to a level in this country whereby zoning will no longer be like in America. Again, the speaker cited the example of America's ability to raise funds. I don't think Americans are not still bothered about zoning any longer, or the British society is still bothered about zoning any longer, because they got to a level whereby they dwell on merit in terms of selection of who should lead their country. Again, we as a nation hope to get to that level, whereby this talk about zoning or ethnicity or whatever religion will become irrelevant. Rather, people will begin to look at merit and capacity to do the job. That is why you see sometimes in the Senate of America, people spend 30-something years in the Senate. Not because there are no other persons in that particular senatorial district, but they believe that as far as you're able to do the job, you have the merits, and you have the capacity and the quality, why not going to go to Senate? So that is not going to be applicable to our own Senate in Nigeria, whereby the Soviets don't have a capacity. You're asking them to give you a third or fourth term, as the case may be. So it depends on the culture, it depends on the situation. Our political culture right now in Nigeria requires both zoning and merit. But when merit is obvious, I think zoning should be sacrificed for merit.
So much, Dr. Osifo. If I may really add up here, really to hang on to you a little bit, you might have followed the conversation from a certain point in time, if not from the beginning, and you must have had the necessity for stability and inclusiveness in the country as a result of zoning. National cohesion and national interests are all being put together in order to be added up in trying to get to what you want to get out of it. But for over 40 years or so, the zoning has been there in this country, and it's now pockets of challenge to it are coming here and there. Do you see these agitations for non-zoning or unzoning or refusing to zone again as timely?
I think we should not be carried away with these groups and persons that have emphasized zoning. Again, referring to the last speaker, I listened to him. Well, politicians are fond of it. If they have started by zoning, they amplify it because that's a particular situation favors them, at a given time. But we are not favored by zoning. They try to play it down. Those who are talking about zoning believe that zoning is going to favor them. But what Nigerians require is political socialization, whereby people are enlightened to know their present level of development and know the political culture and how they can fit into the political culture. Now, in 1993, we had, sometimes people begin to talk about religion, Christian, Muslim, and all that. Nigerians are really not bothered about these things. What Nigerians need, they need a national leader that can integrate every sector or every segment of the nation into one united, indivisible, sovereign nation. And that's the person that can do that. It's not going to be oriented by his religion or by the way he comes from, by his character and by his, political socialization, believing that democracy is for all, and democracy is in essence of democracy is inclusiveness. So when you talk about democracy, you're talking about inclusiveness, that everybody will be part of it. So those who are talking about zoning now in the 2022 to 2023 are those who believe that they will provide zoning. But take an example of 1993 when Nigeria was passing through a very difficult time. And people talk about, you can't have a Muslim ticket. It has to be a Christian and a Muslim, or a Muslim and a Christian. But the SDP fielded a Muslim candidate, MK Abiola of a blessed memory, as a presidential candidate, Muslim. And Ambassador Babagana Kigibe, a Muslim. And of course, even though the election was declared conclusive, we all know we have a figure that they won, massively in this country. So people are not going to be deceived by this question of religion or zone, but rather let the government, all agencies, agents of socialization, continue to preach about how can we get to a political culture, a political behavior that we enable individual persons to go for the person based on merit, based on character, based on antecedent. You cannot sacrifice merit for zone. If I have a good man from Kano, irrespective of his religion, irrespective of his zone, and I know he's going to do better than the man from Benin, I'm going to go for the Kano man. I'm not going to go for zone. I'm not going to go for religion. I'm going to go for character and capacity to do the job. And that's what brought about development. In America, in Britain, in Germany, in Japan, people talk about merit, people talk about capacity, they're not going to talk about zone. People, you should have your records, you should have the criteria in terms of visible assessment that if this woman or this man is elected, he or she will have the capacity to take the nation forward. So, it is always like that. People amplify that as favors them. But we have a responsibility as media, as agents, sociologists, religious organizations to go and say, hey, man, you can have a man in Maiduguri that's better than a man in Warri. So it's not about zone. It is about merit and capacity that is desired by Nigerians. And when you have a free and fair election, Nigerians are so educated politically that they know who to vote for. So what we need is good security agencies that can provide security, good INEC that can ensure free and fair election, political leadership that can ensure free and transparent party primaries, and let the people make a choice. If they make a choice, and from the beginning of party primaries to the level of general election, where you can have INEC and giving Nigerians the enabling environment, the men and women of this country are so conscious that they know who will give them good leadership. I don't think they're going to bother about zoning. So let's not be deceived again about zoning in 2022, 2023. I can buy into that. I come from the south. If I get a candidate, I come from Kaduna, I come from Kano.
Thanks a lot for your comments. We're on the home stretch of this conversation. If you had joined us from the very beginning, I'm sure you would have picked up the comments made by the other guests. You'll be talking about merit. You'll be talking about the need for political socialization. Our guests have said that there is no lack of talent in all the zones in this country. They have also indicated that if you zone it to a particular part of the country, there will also be no shortage of talent in that particular area of the country. You've talked about political socialization, that when we get to a stage where zoning will become irrelevant, but today the talk is about zoning, which is why we are focusing on it. That is the reality of our time and why we have to deal with it. Gentlemen, I just want us to talk about something. For those of you who are political practitioners, earlier you did say that personal interest is driving the verbalization of the zoning imperative or the absence of zoning. And I'm just wondering, if zoning works and therefore the personal interest of an aspirant is defeated, what is the likely political cost for the party? Will the individual now say, okay, since you say no zoning for me, you go and face your opponent and then let us see what happens? Dr. Mogalo.
These are options. These are options. When we all agree that politics are about interests. It could be group interest, it could be personal interest, it could be individual. But the truth still remains that no tree can make a forest. If you want to pursue your ambition in a political party, all right, and then the zoning principle which you are driving does not favor you, two options are left for you. Continue with the group interests or quit. Since nobody compelled you to come and contest. It's a matter of your personal choice. But the reality on ground is at times I get a little worried when we do our comparisons with America, with Britain, and then Nigeria, without taking into account the level of political education, the level of the strength of the political institutions. Like Sergio mentioned it in the past. One of the biggest challenges we have in developing democracies is that the political institutions are not strong. Rather, what we have are strong individuals. So we must strive to build strong institutions, because the moment we have strong institutions, they can consume strong individuals. But when the individuals are stronger than the institutions, we run into problems. So for zoning, like we all agree also, the verbalization is a consequence of interest. Take it and leave it. Those who are opposed to it today are not favored by it because they've looked at the calculations in the years ahead. Those who are in support of it today have some advantage they are going to get if it is entrenched in the system. But it does not remove the fact that it guarantees stability, it guarantees inclusiveness, it guarantees fairness, equity, and justice. Taking into account the age of our democracy, the fragile nature of our democracy, the instability in the system, whatever we have to do as politicians, as political players, is whatever we have to do, we must aim at what do we do to stabilize the process. I agree it may not be like this forever. We may get to a point where in this country, nobody will talk about zoning. Like the examples being made about 1993. It all happened in this country. We forget that the persons involved had a major role to play. The credibility, the character, the acceptability of the individual persons involved had a very strong role to play. You and I know the extent Abiola worked as a person to get his name engraved in the minds of Nigerians across board. It may interest you to know that Abiola defeated Sylvester Goinimbise.
Sylvester Ugo was the running mate to
Correct. That is
Tofa.
in his community.
Yes, of NRC. Yes.
And he defeated Tofa in Kano.
Yes, and he defeated Tofa in Kano.
Yeah.
Such things come not always. And again, if that political arrangement, that development was allowed to grow, then easy references can be made. You can't come out now, knowing our country, and tell me that you're going to fly a Muslim ticket or Christian ticket and to fly in this country. I would like to see the miracle. Because of the level of instability, the level of distrust we have in the country today. You now tell me, okay, whether anybody likes it or not, I'm going to fly a Muslim ticket. The possibility of me succeeding may be slim. Or flying a Christian ticket. What you're going to do by flying a Muslim Christian ticket is to guarantee inclusiveness. The Christian will say have a stake, the Muslim will say have a stake. This is our project.
Okay.
He also sends a picture of our, not mine.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. George. We're pressed for time, really. I'm Sergio. Can you please weave your, closing thoughts around, the institutionalization of zoning, as it were, and then how do we, get off this gradually as we move out and then face the future democratically?
Zoning is conventional presently, and because it's conventional, it's not legal. It can fizzle out over time. But the people must get series of assurances that political leadership will work for the good of all. And that's where we have some little contentions. And also we must develop our democracy to a point where collective interest overrides individual interests. And where we have not very strong individuals pretending over very weak structures, but very strong structures, being led by individuals that play by the rules. And so we are in a quagmire. Presently, like he said, there's a huge trust deficit in the entire system.
Yeah.
The entire political system is not trusted by the ordinary man in the street. And then there is the instability created by the widening gaps within our fault lines. All of these things have to be bridged so that we can have some level of understanding and stability that would engender, a situation where we say, look, anybody can come so long as it protects our collective interest. But even our collective interest is not properly defined. So I think we will overcome, but we need to first and foremost develop stability. Stability in the political stability, economic stability, and social stability. Once we reach that level, I think we won't need any assurances by zoning or by whatever means. But like he said, I will reiterate, a Muslim ticket will be hard to sell, will be hard to fly. A Christian ticket will also be hard to sell and will be hard to fly. This is obvious. Okay. And so we must begin to look at then a southern ticket will be hard to sell. A northern ticket will be hard to sell. So we must accommodate each other in whatever arrangements we have.
All right, Ahmad Sajo, thank you very much. In the past, the idea would have been, let's get the big political power brokers to begin to intervene when the time comes closer, and then temper the hot air that is currently in the environment. But it's an interesting issue, and it's something that we will return to at some point. But right now, I would like to thank all our guests for being with us this morning. Ahmad Sajo, former Commissioner for Information and Strategy at Adamawa State, says there are 87 ethnic groups in Adamawa, and if he were to zone it, he doesn't know when he will get to his turn. Maybe you have to go to Cameroon and then contest before you come back. Ahmad Sajo, our delight having you this morning.
Thank you.
We also would like to thank Dr. George Mogalo, Managing Director of NIWA, that's the Inland Waterways Authority. Thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
Olusoga Owoye, political analyst, joined us via Zoom from Abeokuta, that's the capital of Ogun State. We appreciate your being with us today. And Dr. Azaya Osifo, two-time chairman of Uhonda local government area. Our guest from the Benin Network Center, we also appreciate your contribution to our conversation. All right, so let's move over now to our sports desk.
Russia's Football Federation has dropped an appeal against FIFA's World Cup suspension that was imposed after the country's invasion of Ukraine. The Football Union of Russia had protested against the ban, but the Court of Arbitration for Sport (CAS) says the FUR has now withdrawn that appeal. Russia had qualified to face Poland in a playoff semi-final, but the Poles instead received a bye to face Sweden. However, Russia will continue to fight bans from other sporting competitions. Those include UEFA's ban on Russian sides competing in European club tournaments, such as Spartak Moscow's ejection from the Europa League. UEFA have also prohibited the Russian women's national team from competing in Euro 2022 in England this summer, as a number of countries have refused to compete against Russian opposition. The 2022 Champions League final, originally due to be played in St. Petersburg on 28th May, has also been moved to Paris. In tennis officials will hand out stricter punishments for on-court misconduct, the men's governing body has said. The ATP told players it was also reviewing its penalties for serious violations and repeat offenders. Australian Nick Kyrgios was fined $35,000 after criticizing the umpire and smashing his racket in his fourth-round loss to Yannick Sinner in Miami, and then $25,000 at Indian Wells after again smashing his racket, almost hitting a ball boy in the process. Meanwhile, world number 3 Alexander Zverev was given a suspended 8-week ban after attacking the umpire's chair with his racket in Acapulco. ATP chairman Andrea Gudenzi stated that players all have a role to play to uphold the reputation and integrity of tennis.
Well, up next on Good Morning Nigeria is a look at the foreign scene. Let's have the update from that.
The British Ministry of Defense says the humanitarian situation in the besieged city of Mariupol is worsening due to continued Russian airstrikes and heavy fighting. Most of the 160,000 remaining residents have no light, communication, medicine, heat or water, the ministry noted in its latest intelligence update. It added that Russian forces have prevented humanitarian access, likely to pressure defenders to surrender. In another development, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says Washington will send an additional $100 million in aid to Ukraine to meet its urgent need for anti-armor systems. Blinken said this was the U.S. sixth drawdown of arms, equipment and supplies for Ukraine, and that it brings the U.S. total security assistance to Kiev to more than $1.7 billion since the Russian invasion began. Meanwhile, new accounts have emerged of Malian troops and suspected Russian mercenaries killing about 300 people in a town in its central region. In a statement released on Tuesday, rights group Human Rights Watch, HRW, said there had been a deliberate slaughter of people detained in the central town of Mora. HRW described Mora as being under the quasi control of Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. The United Nations mission in the Sahelian nation said it is still waiting for authorization from the transitional authorities to launch its fact-finding mission in Mora.
All right, so that's it, and good morning, Nigeria. Today, thanks for being with us. We're back tomorrow, same time, 7 in the morning. Look after yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Yusuf Nadabo. Thank you so very much for being part of it.
NTA, you can't beat the rich.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Now, the wise ones have said that man proposes, but God disposes. To some people, it's just a saying, but it's the truth. It's something that truly, truly happens, and I've seen it happening. Welcome. This is Thoughts for the Week with me, Cordelia Ogbe. Now, let's start off by, answering some of these questions. Do you have parents who maybe now have retired, have gone back to the village, maybe they're somewhere close to you, or your in-laws? You have? Now the next question is, how often do you reach out to them? How often do you care for them? Question. Think about that. There are people who believe that they do not owe their parents anything at all. That after all, did I beg you to call me from heaven? I was staying on my own JJ when you gave birth to me. Sending them to school, doing this and that, is something you ought to have done for them because you fathered them or mothered them, so they have come to believe, so they have come to say. But our elders, are they very happy with this? Not so. Let me share a story with you that our elders shared with us. The story of the woodpecker. The woodpecker is a bird that digs very well into wood and all that. It digs very well. At a point, the old mother had wanted to see him. Oh, I'll see her later, I'll see her later, I'll see her later. He kept saying that, procrastinating. And then the woodpecker had this very beautiful plan. that whenever the old mother dies, he was going to dig a very beautiful grave for the mother using his very powerful beak. And alas, the mother died. And the woodpecker, on that very day of the burial, had a big ball on his beak. And so the woodpecker could not do what he had dreamt of doing, digging a big grave for the mother. Our elders say, if your relation is dancing well in an arena, but you do not have money to doll on him, your hearty cheers would do. Put simply, you may not have much to give to your parents right now, but your encouragement, talking to them, talking with them, visiting them when you can, would go a long way. It would be like you are cheering them on for all the work they've done. I've come to see that in this region, and maybe other parts of the world, I don't know about them, I'll speak about this region. You'll find that when somebody dies, an old man, woman dies, you find everybody rallying around the children trying to raise money to do what? To go and modify their home house, or to try and build a house before they can bury their loved ones. That can be very painful, especially when, maybe when they were alive, you didn't do anything at all for them. Now let me share some of these quotes with you. To care for those who once cared for you is one of the highest honors. Parents, they didn't leave you when you were young, so don't leave them when they are old. So, our thoughts for the week. Are you one of those who believe that your parents, you do not owe them anything when they become old and all retired because they did what they had to do for you because they gave birth to you and so on? Till I come your way again, do think about these things and remember that what goes around comes around. My name is Cordelia Obe. Take care.
Hello and welcome to Conversations here on NTA Network. Now you know what Conversations is all about. We talk about issues that affect you and me. My name is Nike. I have some fantastic guests in the studio with me and they'll be introducing themselves today.
My name is Dr. Sylvia Tabo Keke. I have a son who is on the autism spectrum.
Okay, welcome to the Conversations room.
Thank you.
My name is Oluwadamilola Alaudi. I'm a registered behavior technician as well as a qualified autism service practitioner supervisor. I work with individuals on the autism spectrum disorder, and I've been doing that for 8 years now.
8 years,
Yeah.
wow. Okay, so they've kind of let the cat out of the bag. Today we'll be focusing on the autism spectrum disorder, managing children, coping as families, everything under that umbrella. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back after this.
What autism, also known as autism spectrum disorder, is common to a lot of us.
It is often linked to people with repetitive interests, restricted behavioral patterns, and other social or communication impediments. Though ASD symptoms may appear earlier or later in life, they commonly become evident during early childhood, between ages 12 and 24 months. The diagnosis of ASD is usually a detailed and rigorous process involving chains of medical experts. The exact cause of ASD is unknown. The most current research illustrates no single cause. Suspected risk factors for ASD include having an immediate family member who is autistic, certain genetic mutations, being born to older parents, low birth weights, metabolic imbalances, exposure to heavy metals and environmental toxins, and many more.
Because it is common amongst boys, autism spectrum disorder is often called a boy's disease.
However, it does not mean that ASD does not occur in girls. It simply presents differently in girls and women. In comparison to recent decades, ASD is now being tested earlier and more often. This leads to higher reported rates in both boys and girls. There is no cure for ASD. Rather, for some autistic people, support, specific therapies, and considerations can help them feel better or alleviate certain symptoms. Families who have autistic loved ones may be concerned about what life with ASD may look for them as an adult. Some autistic adults go on to live or work independently. Others may require continued aid or support throughout their lives. Each autistic person is different. Autism is a spectrum disorder that does not respect any culture, color, or religion. However, some cultures still perceive autistic victims as witches and so ostracize them. But records have shown that they are people with special creative talents. All they need is a vent.
I know I can.
How then can we help bring out the creativity and productivity of people with autism while helping them enjoy every bit of the world? Let's find out from our guests in the studio.
Welcome back to the Conversations Room, and we're talking about individuals living on the autism spectrum disorder. Thankfully, we have an expert. So, Damilola, I'm going to be throwing quite a number of questions at you.
Okay.
How do I know that I have a child, for instance, that's on the spectrum?
Okay. It presents itself in 3 domains: the communication skills, social interaction skills, and then in some behaviors.
Right.
So communication, you would expect that typically your child will look at you because that's where communication starts. It's by giving eye contact and the likes. So if your child is not able to look at you as early as 3 months, to be precise, then that's a red flag. Also, they're supposed to be able to smile back, because even though they don't have words at this stage, but they can recognize your presence and smile back at you. If those is not happening, then you want to start watching out for things. If they're also not raising up their hands to be carried, these are typical things that toddlers do. But if you're not seeing it happen, then you should start watching for it. Even if some people scale through, you will discover they want to be by themselves sometimes. They don't want to interact with people. They don't want to be found in the midst of others, or they are unnecessarily feeling overwhelmed by lights, sounds. Those are things that tells you should get them checked. Then behaviors, you see, typically if a child is playing with a car, they would play with the car as a whole. But some of these children would rather focus on the wheels of the car. And then you see them going back and forth. You're lying, or they just want to look at the wheels. Or they want to do a particular thing. You're watching the rhymes, for instance, and then they keep going back to a particular part of the rhymes because that's the only thing that interests them in the rhymes. Some of these things are things you look out for in a child with autism.
Okay, so but there are parents watching you right now, like, what she's saying kind of sounds like what my daughter is going through. Where do we go from here? Do I watch for some time before I take the child in? Does it have to be at a certain age before I take my child in for an assessment? Is that what it's called?
Yes, it's an assessment.
Right.
I mean, right now, assessment can be done as early as 18 months.
Really?
Yes. But before then, you would have been tracking milestones. There are different milestones tracker that helps you know what a child is supposed to be doing at a certain age. So you're taking note of all of these things. And for any child to get diagnosis of autism, they have to have checked something on these 3 domains: the communication, the social skills, the repetitive. So if you're seeing different things at these places, as soon as they're 18 months, you're advised to take them for an assessment so that they will be able to know if it's autism or it is something else. Because what we preach as DIBA is early intervention, really.
Okay.
The earlier, the better. Yeah.
Okay. Well, now we have Sylvia here, and you talked about in the introductions that you're a parent. What was the journey like for you at the very beginning? Maybe you want to share a little bit of, because there are parents who are watching and like, oh, she's a parent. She's walking in my shoes. How did you know?
For me, like Damilola said, autism is a spectrum. Some, you can catch it very early. Why some do not present the way everyone thinks it should present. For my own journey, and my journey can be different from every other person's journey. All this milestone from 0 to 12 months of the rest, he met all of that. Right. He walked early, he did all that. And he wasn't talking. My son's own was speech. It was speech, right? And because he's a boy, everybody said, oh, boys don't talk early. Be calm, relax. Yeah. Boys don't talk early, relax, be calm. And then I said, okay, until I just knew that something wasn't right.
Okay. We're going to go into a bit more detail about your journey and how you found out that your son was on the spectrum. But we'll take a quick break. This is Conversations here on NTA Network. We'll be right back.
Don't forget to send in your messages.
There's a difference between picking, child, and issue.
It's actually cool. The idea that is
you can do more with less people.
If we have a better way of addressing these issues, taking care of.
Congratulations, you were able to sign Tino Werner from RB Leipzig.
Take water before your workout.
People have used that for little TikTok to do that.
A
lot of people don't even have resources.
I'm Cecil, and this is the Medley Show on NTA.
We want to talk about rights, there are obligations. I'm not saying that this government is a saint, very far from it. But there are things that we can do to make it better, and that's the challenge I'm throwing to you. You don't want to build this nation? I don't know where else you want to go. If I had a choice, I'll come back. When I stand outside and I hear what you have to say about this country that I know that I can die for as one, then I'm really sad because you're young. You have education. You have tools. You have a huge future ahead of you. And you're condemning yourself before you started on that journey. So please don't do that. Please don't.
Wannan labarin ma yana peji na 36.
Ita kuma babban labarin wannan jarida shine ainihin
labarin da ke gaban jarida shine ta bayyana cewa
ọkwa ji ken eziokwu
nwanne m nwoke
Ikechukwu Ndukwe Igbo
iji wee mee ka ụbọchị na-aga n'anya ya
ọjọọ ya ewutelu ndụ